Welcome back to Living Out Loud with Laura. I am Laura. On this episode, I am so excited. We are diving into some politics with a wonderful candidate for seat number 1. I got to read it because I want to make sure I get it correctly because boy, can I get this completely screwed up. Our guest today is running for the Orange County Soil and Water Conservation District seat number 1, and it is our very own Quinnie Perez. Welcome to the show, Quinnie. We are so glad to have you here today. It is so vital for voices of our candidates to be heard. I am so grateful that you were willing to take some time out of your day to speak to me. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself before we get into the politics of it all?
Sure. So, like you said, my name is Quinnie Perez. I'm someone who has grown up in Florida. Like I grew up in Ocala, Florida. If any of you are familiar with that, Ocala, Florida is very agricultural, very environmental area. Like I used to live like 10 minutes away from Rainbow Springs, a couple
Oh,
minutes from,
yes.
yeah, a couple
Like
minutes
the
from
Ocala
Silver.
National Forest we're talking.
Yeah. Like I used to live on 40, going all the way down to the National Forest, Silver
Mhm.
Springs Park. So I've always been invited. I mean, not invited. I've always been surrounded by agriculture. My parents are agriculture workers themselves. They work in the equine business. I work in the agricultural business industry myself. In the harvesting and cultivation of medical cannabis. So I've always been around agriculture in rural areas. So I think, you know, it definitely has shaped my experiences, my growing up. But yeah, I mean, I can go
Especially
on.
growing up in a rural area like the Ocala area there, that is very, very rural. And wow, that is something like you have no idea. Like, I'd like to do an entire episode where I could deep dive with you on that because I would
Mhm.
love to hear your perspectives of being a proud trans woman who grew up in such a rural setting because, oh gosh, I think that's so important. But that's not what today's show is about. And I promise you, I will try to convince Quinnie to come back so I can ask her all of those questions because I think that's so important. Because I know we have rural viewers out there who are wondering if they're alone, and you're not. And I want people like Quinnie to be able to share their perspectives. However, Quinnie, you're running as the proud trans daughter of Mexican immigrants. In local politics spaces like the soil and water conservation districts have historically lacked diverse voices. What was the defining moment for you where you said our environment and our workers need unapologetic representation?
Sure. So it really goes back to like how I got started in my political involvement. So I got really more involved in 2016, like as many of us remember, the 2016 election, a very decisive divisive election.
Yeah, this
But
is my glitch because this is
yeah,
old Laura.
yeah.
Old
So
Laura in 2016. Laura didn't become a better person until 2018, unfortunately. That's
yeah.
my glitch. So sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, in 2016, one of the first things that at the time, like my Trump had made his announcement that he was going to run for president, and one of the first things he did in his campaign kickoff was disparage Mexican immigrants. And during that time, I was working at my college. I was a biology major, focused in microbiology. I was really into STEM, but I had always been like somebody who had always been like interested in environmental activism, going back all the way since like 2012,
Mm-hmm.
even back when I was in high school. But my that's what really got me involved. It was very personal, like the issue of immigration. It's personal to me because I am the daughter of Mexican immigrants. So that really propelled my work that I've been doing for the last decade. But most recently, like in 2024, Trump got reelected,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And that during that time, I had taken a hiatus. I had worked for a congressional race in 2022 for CD7. We ran against Corey Mills back in 22, like when he first decided to run, and unfortunately, we lost against Corey Mills. But I took a hiatus. I got a little burnt out from the work that I was doing.
I can
Um,
understand that completely. Trust me. I took
mhm.
almost an entire year off because I literally needed to go to therapy and get my head right after that
Yeah,
election. I'm not
yeah.
even
I mean,
kidding.
yeah. I did that exactly, and during that time, I actually started transitioning.
I was going to ask you about that. So
Mhm.
you're answering one of my questions. So when exactly is it that you started transitioning?
So yeah, back in I think 2023, I was, like started feeling a little, not myself.
Not right
Uh,
in your skin?
Yeah, not again. And I used to drown that kind of with like going to the gym like 7 days a week. Like if you saw old pictures of me, I'm like almost 200 pounds, real muscular. Definitely not what I look
Yeah,
like
I
now.
have pictures of my daughter doing this too, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand.
But yeah, so I during that time I explored, and it wasn't until really 2024 where I started medically transitioning. And it wasn't really until Trump got elected, and when he got inaugurated, it became personal because he attacked immigrants and the trans community. At that point, I told myself like I have to do something. And I decided I did some research, and I looked at my soil and water. During that
Mm-hmm.
time, I was still working with my cultivation and harvesting of medical cannabis. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt that I was qualified under that. But I've always been passionate about like immigrant issues, specifically farm workers. And this role is more of an advocacy role than it is a legislative or tax authority. So it definitely lends itself to be a position where I can advocate for those type of issues, like like he restrictions. Like our state back in 2024, like our state actually doesn't have any laws to protect our farm workers, our service workers, our theme park work. Like a lot of people in Central Florida are employed by Disney and Universal, and
The
I used to
mouse.
actually, yeah, them out.
The mouse might pay for my house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I first moved to Orlando, I actually worked at Universal
Yeah.
Studios. I was a custodial worker
Mm-hmm.
at Universal, while at the same time I was like interning with at the time Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith, now Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith. He was the first person who really got me my opportunity here in Orlando. And that was through just speaking with him. In Marion County, we had an issue with trans kids being able to use their preferred bathroom. So Equality Florida came through. The senator was working with Equality Florida at the time, and we had a conversation about
Yeah.
me going to, moving to Orlando to go attend UCF, and I started working in his legislative office in 2017, the beginning of 2017.
Nice, nice. Well, on Living Out Loud, Laura, we focus a lot on authenticity and
Mhm.
living out loud. And especially since you just shared that, you've transitioned more recently than you've been an advocate. So basically you've been an advocate much longer than you have transitioned to becoming transgender. I'm just going to
Mhm.
use simple words for my
Right.
audience. So
Yeah.
how have being living authentically now in the skin that feels right for you, how has that shifted your perspective at all? Has that made any difference on why you feel so important on the advocacy?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I have less patience for, like slow efforts, I think, like on the legislative side. I think being someone where I see, like several hundred of anti-trans bills around the nation, just attacking people's healthcare. Like that's ultimately what it is. They're attacking our healthcare.
Yes.
Um, so it definitely made me more confident and more just direct. I've lobbied in DC. I've lobbied in Tallahassee several times for Equality Florida, for other issues like education. So I'm not new to having those hard conversations with like people in positions of power. So like now even more important is I think it's very important for people to see somebody like me because here in the state of Florida, we've never had an elected official that is trans. So
Correct.
that
100%. And I just want to say quickly before we get back into the political sauce of it all,
sure.
the fact that I just want to recognize and congratulate you on your bravery because you were in the midst of this nightmare legislation. Like you just said, there's like I believe, like over 500 LGBTQIA plus like legislative policies nationwide or something crazy like that.
Mhm.
And like you said, about 100 different trans ones. But even with all that going on, and I'm trying to make a point to my audience and to some
Mhm.
of the people that wonder about people transitioning, with all that hate out there and all of the noise, knowing that what you might be met with, it was more important for you personally and mentally for you to live authentically than just erase yourself into the noise and lose yourself. And I just want to commend you for being strong enough to live your truth. So thank you so much. Thank you for being you and being willing to do it so visibly and out in the open for everybody. It truly is something that I really appreciate.
Thank you so
Now,
much.
next, let's get back to a little bit of political talk. Now in
Sure.
Central Florida, let's be honest here. We're experiencing major population growth as
Mhm.
well as escalating climates. It is hot as heck out there, let me just tell you. And insurance costs are through the roof. A lot of people, we're not even just talking about medical insurance, we're also talking about homeowners insurance, property insurance. People are getting priced out of the area. I have friends that are losing their homeowners insurance and having to move out of the state.
Mhm.
So, so with all that, you focused heavily on the need for wastewater plant and infrastructure upgrades. How do local municipal decisions regarding water, recycling, and city planning directly impact the wallets and safety of everyday families in Winter Garden in the greater Orange County area? When
Sure.
we're looking at all this stuff, sorry.
No, you're fine. So I think one thing that's actually going on right now is, well, like the last couple of weeks, the board of commissioners here in Orange County have been going around the constituents talking about a stormwater fee that would be, like added on to the
Wait.
utilities.
Did you just say a storm water fee?
Mhm.
FEE, right? A stormwater fee. Okay.
Yeah,
So
a
what
stormwater
you're
fee.
getting ready to tell me is they now want to charge people to live in Florida for us to have the storm waters removed from our local areas?
No.
Okay.
So no, don't worry. So I can go on. So like stormwater
Thank
fee.
goodness.
No, you're fine. And then like that's part of it, educating people on these kind of
Yeah.
things. Not a lot of people are really into the hyper local policy that's going on. But with a stormwater fee, it's a proposed fee that would on average be about like an extra $10 a month. And what this would go towards would be like towards our stormwater infrastructure budget. So like being able to like get those funds to improve our infrastructure to prevent flooding, like in our district. You know, yeah,
So what it's doing is carving out a specific infrastructure area that would help with flood and stormwater issues.
mhm, yeah,
Okay. You see, thank
yeah.
you. That made so much more sense to me. Like that really helps me understand. So, because our main infrastructure looks at the global picture, and maybe
Mhm,
not enough of that is getting um, the attention that it needs in the
Mhm.
storm issues. So
Mhm.
this legislation they're looking at or
Mhm.
would
Yeah.
help with that, right?
Yeah, yeah. So they have different like levels. You could, for example, it could be like if we do like a 25-year plan or like a 50-year plan or so on. For example, a 25-year plan would essentially bring in, I think, about $55 million in infrastructure, like for, I mean, like money for our to be able to repair our stormwater infrastructure, which would be, I think, either 5 to 10 times more than the current budget that we have in Orange County. So it's always important, and the Board of Commissioners are going to be voting on this, I believe, at their next meeting on the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. That's why currently you can go on to I forget what the website is, but you can my sign there or fill out their stormwater fee survey, and it had a couple of questions that you can talk about, I mean, or
We'll,
respond to. I
we'll
mean,
get that address and we'll put it up on the
yeah,
screen when we're talking about this for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah, for sure.
It'll be,
So, yeah, exactly. So it's very hyper focused, things like that, and you really have to understand what your constituents are facing, because like in Hunters Creek, it might be flooding, and other areas, where they're
I
more
used to work in
rural.
Hunters Creek.
Yeah, yeah, and there's other areas, like where like it's more about environmental protection that people are focused on. So you really have to know your community to be able to advocate them
And
for
it
them.
does matter because I know here in Lake County, Mount Dora, down on Donnelly, we had a road that was completely washed out after a
Hmm.
storm. It
Yep.
wasn't even a hurricane, it was just a storm.
Hmm.
So that is what they're talking about, like to help with those things, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, exactly. So, like you definitely have to talk to people, because understandably people are like, oh, well, an extra $10 might it could mean, like the difference between me being able to fill up my car. But like there's also things that people need to consider is like, are we going to be paying less for our infrastructure? Because this stuff affects your homes as well. Flooding affects your homes. Which is your biggest, like
Which
asset.
let's flooding does, and that's another very big important thing because I think a lot of people that don't live in Florida don't understand that in Florida we can have homeowners insurance, but if you
Hmm.
live in a flood zone you also have to have flood
Hmm.
insurance,
Hmm.
and on top of that you have to have hurricane insurance.
Hmm.
Like, I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people understand. They just think, oh, we live in the sunshiny state and we get to
Hmm.
have homeowners insurance. But
Yeah.
no, not
Yeah.
necessarily. Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to
Hmm.
get homeowners insurance in the state of Florida. And
Yeah. And
partially
mhm,
because of the infrastructure issues.
mhm.
Like, when
And
you
yeah.
have homes being like, if it was either in Seminole or Orange, I know that during one of the hurricanes a year or two back, like the like retention pond or something, the dam broke and it
Yeah.
ended up flooding things. And once again, that's infrastructure. I'm
Mhm.
hoping to try to explain a little bit of what really is infrastructure. And
Mhm.
another thing a lot of people don't understand in Florida is we don't have state tax.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what is used in our state is tourist tax to me is
Yep.
mainly for
Yeah.
our
Mhm.
revenue when you go to hotels and everything.
Mhm.
So we're not already paying a whole bunch of taxes in that manner. So something that might cost $10 but would be able to provide you with security for your home to help
Mhm.
prevent you from flooding, to help ensure that emergency vehicles can get to your home should you have a need. Like that
Mhm.
is all the roads and all those things, right? Is
Mhm.
infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bridges.
Mhm. Yeah, and this fee would be determined, like your property would be, the fee would be determined based on how much, like for example, how much pavement you have on your property. So like that's how they calculate those fees. But yeah, it's very important, like to understand long term, like how we can be supporting our infrastructure, because like I was just gonna say, like we haven't had a major hurricane, I think, in the last year or two. So
Found
Yeah,
wood.
exactly, exactly. So like right now, an issue like stormwater fee may seem like something that's not important to a person at the moment because we haven't experienced, severe flooding like in a minute. So these issues are not readily in people's mind at the moment. So, like talking about it, communicating this kind of stuff is very important. It's especially in my district because we like have dealt with a lot of flooding there as well recently.
And you got your start in conservation all the way back in high school as an in the as the ecological club president, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I was always trying to like find some way to get involved, and the ecology club was one of them. And I like the same my teacher who was the ecology club professor or teacher was like
Yeah.
advisor was the literary club advisor too. So I was in both. But like she was someone who like really lived like a very like naturalist life, very always go camping. Some of our trips involved our events involved camping at Payne's Prairie over in Alachua County.
Mm-hmm.
Um so that's where I just continued to my just love nature and our environment a little bit more. And then during school we also used things like videography to record, little advertisements to promote people to recycle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we use that money to pay for our recycling bins and our classes. So, it's very important to get young people in the habit of conservation and just understanding their environment and how to
Yes.
protect it. And so that's one of the things that I'm advocating for. One of my big policies is conservation education. I've been fortunate enough to get the endorsement of the school board member, Ann Douglas, who represents my district for the school board. I've also had conversations with the sustainability manager for Orange County Public Schools. So, I'm trying to find how we can support those programs through, legislative like methods, because that's kind of where I had my experience from. I've worked with, Senator Carly Gizmo Smith. I've worked with different, like public officials. So
Right.
I look
So
for.
you might be new to a trying your hand at a public position like this, but you're not new to conservation. You're not new to the political arena. You're
Mhm,
not used to advocating for what's best for everyone.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, no, like one of the I remember when I was working with Senator Smith back in 2017. Some of the things that we did during Hurricane Maria, we coordinated flights from the island to Orlando at the executive airport so that we could bring people back to the mainland and that we could fly out supplies to the island. And on top of that, we also had advocated for our first responders and the survivors of the Pulse nightclub shooting. So I came to work with him around that time, and I've really have been involved with our community since then. Like I've seen how tragedy ultimately like blossoms into activism and legislative accomplishments. So I'm looking forward to like carrying on that work and moving our community forward.
That is wonderful. What do you think is your I know you said you're wanting to focus on conservation education and everything. What would you think are the top 3 things people should know about you and why you are the right person for this position?
Sure. So I do have firsthand experience in agriculture. Like I work hands-on with our immigrant laborers. Like in this, I do work for like the second largest provider in the state for for medical cannabis. Very aware of those struggles, like the heat, stuff like that. That's stuff that I've personally have dealt with. I understand how important these workers are to the farmers. and how important it is for us to support our farmers in every way. If we're not advocating for the farm workers, then we're not advocating for our farmers. And
I I know I asked you to give me three things, but now what you're talking about, I know I just realized I didn't even touch on it. And I feel like, oh my gosh, how did I not touch on this?
you're fine.
What are the most pressing struggles that our Orange County farmers are facing today regarding our harsh conditions, and how will what your seat tie into that?
Sure. So, I mean, like, if you even think about like the mother immigrant community in Apopka, a lot of them are, day laborers.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about how climate affects, the livelihood of people. If you're a day laborer, like if there's a natural disaster or a hurricane, you're unable to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you really need the support of your community to be able to survive. And there are great organizations like 5051, Manos in Action,
Mm-hmm.
organizations that are providing mutual aid to these people, like in a very respectable way, in a very, like I say, discreet way where, like, we are considering their protection, especially in this political climate. But I think it's very important with our political climate going on right now. People are scared to go out and work. Like
Yes.
not that they don't want to work, is that they're just scared to go out there. And you're people who we rely on. It's not just farm workers. There's our service industry workers,
Yes.
like people who work in our theme parks, the people who provide,
Hold on.
that.
I'm going to take it one step further. If people understood how many of our home health aides in the
Hmm.
state of Florida are immigrants,
Hmm.
people going and providing care for our seniors, our elderly, and our disabled, and they are scared to go to work. We have such, I'm sorry, I'm a nurse. I can't help this. We have such a nursing shortage and healthcare crisis here in Florida. And immigrants is what I was
Hmm.
always taught, immigrants is what made our country great. And quite
Right.
honestly, we are such a melting pot here in Florida. We
Mhm.
need these amazing immigrants that speak other languages. Because let me just tell you, as a nurse and somebody that the only second language I speak is sarcasm, it was imperative that I had qualified people that were there next to the bedside that
Mhm.
could help me, could translate, could answer
Mhm.
questions. And that's not done without our beautiful immigrant community.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is so important. It touches so much. And
Mhm.
like you're talking about our farm workers who go out there and harvest our oranges and our celery. And like we do grow quite a few things here in Florida, believe it or not. And if
Mhm.
they're afraid to go pick the oranges, we might be worried about a freeze coming and taking out the orange crops. But if we can't even pick the oranges because we don't have the people,
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And you brought up, like nursing. I was actually a nursing major before I switched over to biology. And my first job was actually at an assisted living facility. So I'm very aware of how important our immigrant community is to,
yes,
like the healthcare industry as a whole.
hugely,
Hmm.
hugely, hugely.
Hmm.
And yeah, I used to be the supervisor of utilization management for one of the largest long term care plans in the state of Florida. And the one thing I can tell you is that as far as the immigrant population goes, they are the most likely to keep their loved one living at home with them, caring for
Hmm.
them in their home, having family come in and using
Yep.
whatever resources they have
Hmm.
to take care of that person. If you actually look at the people that are mostly in the facilities, they
Yep.
look a lot like me.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I want to let you know, I used to have to try to call those people, family members, once a month to talk to them.
Yep.
I had 100 members. I don't, there was less than 10 family members that ever called me back.
Oh yeah,
So
no, yeah, no, like
immigrants are not draining our systems.
no, no,
And it's important to realize this too, because sorry, they just had
you're
this
fine.
whole community service thing. The average cost of nursing home placement is over $10,000 a month in
A
Florida.
month.
$10,000 a month.
Hmm.
Home and community based services
Yep.
run approximately $1,100, maybe $1,200 a month. If
Hmm.
you don't understand that it doesn't make sense to institutionalize people, I know we just went somewhere else, but that was on my mind. I'm
Oh no, yeah,
sorry.
no,
I apologize.
no, no, you're fine. I've
But
experienced that. I'm
our
very aware of that.
immigrant population is not the problem.
Hmm.
Trans people are not the problem. Your taxes are high. Immigrants are not the problem that reason your taxes are high or why your life sucks. All
Yep.
these people are the reason that your life are better because they are the ones out there advocating for equal right, equal justice. Even if you don't like them, they don't even care if you don't like them. They're going to let you not like them, and they're going to advocate for you to have the same rights they do.
Yeah,
So,
and I don't think it's immigrants who are trying to propose a slash on property taxes, you know what I mean, which will
no,
only increase, like the cost of the services that we rely on a daily basis.
right.
So like it's not immigrants doing that.
No, it's not. So this was I know it kind of segued, but it isn't a segue because it's important for people to understand and get to look at the people in their face and see we're living, breathing people. I'm disabled. I'm not a drain on society. I I was a nurse for 27 years. I paid my taxes all
Hmm.
that time. All I'm trying to do is draw on the benefits that I paid into
Hmm.
that were told I would have for me. It
Hmm.
wasn't immigrants that caused my problem. It's not trans people causing my problem. And I know some politicians like to give you a boogeyman of all these people that are trying to take our benefits. It's not true. It's not
Hmm.
true. Not true.
Yep, that's right.
But sorry, I did
You're
my own
fine.
little monologue.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's how I operate as
So
well.
quit. So let's go back. What else? I'm sorry. It was just so important for us to talk about the farmers, and
Hmm.
immigration is so important these days. Everyone, unless you are a Native American, came from somewhere else, and that's what made us all great. And your parents being Mexican immigrants coming over here, you're bringing an understanding that is highly important. Because do you have any idea? I don't know. Do you know what the statistic is of the Hispanic population in Florida?
Not off the top of my head, but
Okay.
like Central Florida specifically is a growing population. Like for sure. Especially like in Osceola area for sure.
Yes, exactly. So that's why it is so important to have representation. You have to have people that understand. Having someone who has spent basically their entire life, I mean, tracking all the way back to high school, you're very involved in ecology and the environment and conservation. And that is a passion that you're bringing forward today. I absolutely love that.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, like you really have to run on things that you're passionate about. People will understand that. It's one thing to run for office, but if you're not doing it for the right reason or something that you really believe in, I think people appreciate somebody who has been firm on their values over a long time, and won't change them. Like depending on what the climate is. And I think someone like me who, who is trans, like I think I'm more comfortable and more steadfast on what I believe in. And I want to be able to advocate people with that kind of confidence that I have.
Yes, and since you brought it back to being trans, there's something that a lot of people are not aware of, and I always like to use this as an educational thing. Um, so a lot of people don't realize that in order for somebody to transition medically, not just socially,
Mhm.
it requires therapy. So I have to tell you, all my viewers and listeners out there, transgender people are some of the most well um, what do you call
Like,
mentally stable because
mhm.
they're so aware of themselves. They've had to go through a lot of inward looking. They've had to go to a lot of therapy. They've had to go up against a lot of different things. Just even simply coming out to one's family.
Hmm.
You never know what somebody's family is like and how they're going to respond. And for
Hmm.
every single trans person out there that has gone to live their truth, they have had a lot of therapy. Well adjusted. That was the word I was looking for. They're some of the most well adjusted people. I knew I was getting there. Well adjusted people I know. I hate brain fog, guys. And I hate word salad. I hate trying to find words, but sometimes it happens. But truly are. I'm so excited, Quinnie, that you are running this year. Robin Lawrence is running this year. We have two people, two trans women, proud trans women that are running for office. And I am hoping that we can break through the noise and have people whose passions and compassion and understanding of the platform that they are running for matter and weigh out the noise.
Hmm.
You need somebody whose passion goes all the way back to high school because that's something that's unbreakable.
Yeah. No, like for sure. Like you really just have to I mean, what I tell people is like people are probably gonna just disagree with you like 7 out of 10 times, but I think once you bring it down to like the most fundamental, like what like the moral and ethics of things,
Mm-hmm.
what is right and wrong, I think that's when we can start to have more common ground like on very divisive issues. And that's kind of how I've lived my life, especially growing up in a very conservative area. I've been able to
Yes.
make connections with conservative elected officials just because I we get past the noise and we really talk about what's important.
You get them to focus on the issues
Hmm.
because the issues are the constituents.
Hmm. Yeah, and one big thing on it for sure, like you talk about the issues like affordability, especially with the food on our kitchen tables. I think
Yes.
that's one thing that I think food security is a very nonpartisan issue. We rely on our farm workers and our farmers to provide that for us. So ultimately, if we're not taking care of them, then we're going to be paying the price ourselves.
Correct. 100%. And I know, like I mentioned, like being disabled, we just talked about the heat and the humidity out there. Like for me, my dysautonomia, I have heat intolerance. Going outside in the heat in Florida is something I can't do. I can't even garden in my garden. Like I can't even plant flowers. So for me, someone that does that work, that is so valuable, so immensely valuable. Without somebody going out there and farming, picking the food and making sure it gets to my table, I wouldn't be able to have substance because I do not have the ability to be outside farming,
Hmm.
especially in Florida. And
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
even like I've never been a Martha Stewart type anyway. I like bling, but I don't know how to do like that home stuff. I'm not a trad wife, that's for sure.
I mean, I like dressing up like
Not
a
that there's
trap.
anything wrong with it. If that's what you choose and that's what you are happy with, more power to you. I just am not
Yeah.
one of them, obviously. Big mouth.
Yeah. Well, I always say because I love dressing in vintage clothing. So I'm very much of the like I love the aesthetic, but I always say vintage style, not values. Is very important.
Ooh, vintage style, not values. I love that. I love that. That is, I love the pinup. It's a very nice,
Yeah.
very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Quinnie, and for bringing authentic light to everyone. Your words are going to resonate with so many people, and I hope they resonate at the ballot box because we need leaders in our represented elected officials, our represented elected officials that care and have passion about the positions that they're running for and the positions they want to fill. And Quinnie, I mean, going all the way back to high school, all the way back today, all the way forward to today, you are a brave advocate and you stand for everyone and the values of everyone. So thank you for bringing that to light. And I want to make sure that everybody checks out. I got my thing here because I need to make sure I read it correctly. And I want to
Okay.
make sure everybody checks out her campaign at quinnie4soilandwater.com. Once again, we're
Mhm.
going to put that up here. So it's going to be quinnie4waterandsoil.com. Check her out, go vote, get out and tell other people. Local elections are important. And really quick, I told Quinnie I wanted to make sure she did this. So, really quick before we sign off, explain to everyone listening out there, why is it so important, especially for immigrants and people of color, to get out and vote? For people that don't look like me, why is it so important for them to get out and vote?
Yeah, I think it's very important because many times it's people like us who are like who are people of color who are unable to attend like their meetings because they're out there working
Mm-hmm.
7 days a week sometimes. So I think it's very important for us to be able to uplift them, give them opportunities to be able to vote, showing them the importance of voting. But I think first and foremost, we need to listen to what issues they really care about. I think approaching it that way and advocating for those issues is very important. That's what I do, and I feel that like people recognize that. But it's really important that we do give them an ear to listen. And then like I think it's very important through like mutual aid. I think what people don't realize through mutual aid, people are impacted directly and immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we can make promises about like what kind of legislation we can provide these people, but direct impact, like immediate impact is very important for these communities. And I think that's how we can build trust and then get them more involved. Because they get to see what kind of things their community can do for them. So that's one thing I definitely wanted to say.
That good. I love that because it is important. And I do love exactly what you just said. And I want to parrot it back. You just said, why is it so important? Because very often the hardest working people are the people of color in our immigrant community, are working the 50, 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks. And you might not be able to attend the legislative sessions that are going on. You might not be able to get up to that microphone and have your voice heard. And let me tell you, because I have gone with Equality Florida up and to
Mhm.
argue with these people about medical issues, they will even turn
Have
your
to.
microphone off while you are talking to them because they did it to me.
Hmm.
So if you want to have your voice heard, the best way for you to have your voice heard when you cannot be in that room, or even if being in that room means you can't speak, your voice is heard by who you vote for.
That's true.
And when you vote, you give that person the power to speak for you.
Hmm.
So who you vote for matters because what that candidate says and spews
Hmm.
represents you. Your vote
Yeah.
bought that.
Hmm.
So you
And I
want to
tell
make
people, no,
go.
yeah, and I tell people that the same way somebody campaigns is should be the same way that they plan on governing. So it's very important that you take notice of what your candidates are doing, especially this election, how they're campaigning. Are they talking to every single community? Are they shying away from, like talking to certain communities or certain people? Just be mindful of that kind of work. It's very important that you, yeah.
I also think it's important to not just listen. Like I just told you, I told you how to go to Quinnie's website to look for yourself because I want you to hear her words. Then I want you to go on her platform and look. Did what she say match what's written here?
Hmm.
Because that is something that gets very twisted within mainstream media and in echo chambers or just in daily life sometimes. However, politicians often do a really good job at saying one thing and doing another. So it's
Hmm.
important for you to listen to their words, but go on their platform and look into it. Does their platform, what they say, does that match your values? And
Hmm.
when you find that person that matches your values and you listen to that candidate speak, and they're speaking in a way that you feel you feel respected, and you feel your neighbor would feel respected. Those are the people we put our trust in, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're neighbors.
Hmm.
We used to be able to walk across the street and get a cup of sugar.
Hmm.
Now there's signs up, don't come on my property. It's not very neighborly.
It's not.
And we need to get back to caring about one another. And the way we care about one another is by making sure we vote for people that care about everyone.
That's true.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions for Quinnie, go ahead and leave them here, and I will make sure she gets them. And
Mhm.
I will try to make sure I can get her to come back so she can really tell us about her perspective of coming to terms with her identity while living in a rural environment. I think that's fascinating. So, Quinnie, thank you so much. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to say whatever you want to say to everybody, and then we'll close out the show.
Sure, sure. Just I guess a little plug, I guess. So like you said, you can find me at quinnieforsoilandwater.com. You can also find me on my social medias on Facebook and Instagram, both under Quinnie for Soil and Water. I'm someone who updates, I'd say, about every day because I'm in the community almost every single day. And just I've been fortunate enough to get some great endorsements from our community, like Dr. Ana Villascamani, Senator Carlo Guillermo Smith, Representative Rita Harris, Representative Rashawn Young, Senator Lavon Bracey Davis, the Environmental Caucus. I could go on.
Yeah, these are good. These are really good. Like, I'm like, yep, check, check,
Yeah,
check.
yeah, and our campaign has also gotten some national attention. We've been endorsed by Run for Something. The LGBTQ plus Victory Fund has endorsed our campaign. So I think it's very like this is a very important race. It may be just be soil and water. Some people may just see it as soil and water. Some people may not even know that that's something that they can vote for. But
They
yeah.
might not know they could vote for it, but let's think about how important soil and water is to our daily lives.
True, that's true. So that's something that I've been vocal about. I do try to bring to light a lot of national issues that are going on. Like data centers.
Yes,
That's one thing that if you look at my platform, people.
alligator Alcatraz.
Mhm. All kinds of things like environmental is political. If you ultimately see it, if you really pay attention to a lot of the issues that are going on, there's a lot of politics and involved in how we preserve our green lands and waterways. So,
And
yeah,
I
you can comment patient on there. But yeah, feel free to sign up to volunteer. We also donate. It's very important. The donations are very important in a small, hyper focused local race like ours. But we need that for, digital ads, communication, is very important to get our message out.
sign. So help her get her word out. Go on her Facebook, go on her Instagram, share it, explain in a little blurb why you think she is the person. Even if she's not in your district, somebody's going to see this. Somebody might see it, and they're the ones that are going to be standing at that ballot going, you know what? So and so told me this person was good, and I respect so and so, so I'm going to vote for them.
Right.
Be that person. Be the person that brings good into the world. And I want to remind everybody that in Florida, it was just about a year ago that our governor tried to sell our protective lands for golf courses. And this is another reason why conservation is so important. So we have beautiful natural seashores, natural state parks to go to.
That's right. Very important.
Beauty for everyone, not just for some. So until next time, everyone, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I want to thank you for living your lives out loud. This journey would not be possible without you. Until next time, live your life out loud. Thank you all. Have a great one.
Bye.